Hello and welcome to the rough draft introduction video for the street art unit. Today is going to be a watch and then try video, and I am going to be showing you what you will do after you have created your design on the online graffiti generator called Graffiti Empire. You're going to do the first step where you're leaving your letters all next to each other, and you're going to take a second screenshot where you have spaced out your letters. Now we are practicing the perspective. So we're not drawing in this little black section that's on the side of these letters. That's what we're going to do with our vanishing point. Now we start by drawing in boxes so that we can see that we've got enough space for all of our letters before we begin practicing. And this is just going to be a very loose first draft version of drawing in these letters because this is something we have not done yet. So I am just kind of following along, and notice that my letters are not going to stay perfect compared to the example. Now I'm going to have these just come out and around. They're not like exactly the same as the example here, but just something sort of similar. And then I'm going to go into this next box and continue drawing in these letters. So once you've got all of your letters drawn in, the next step is to decide where you want your vanishing point to be. Now that is going to make a big difference in the end result that we have for how your letters will look. Now we are going to choose from just above and below for our vanishing point. So if you'd like to see the bottom of your letters, then you'll draw your vanishing point below. If you want to see the top of your letters, then you'll draw it above. Now you do have the option to place it in a corner rather than just immediately above or below, but it does need to be not directly next to it. We don't want it on the side because that does change it from 1 point perspective to 2, and we have only practiced 1. Now, I'm going to select this spot for my vanishing point. So I'm going to draw it in. Now what we're doing is every edge, we are going to go through and draw that line back to the vanishing point. And I'm doing this fairly lightly, and we will have some areas that won't have a line drawn in. For example, the most farthest point of this indent on the W is behind these letters. So I do not need to draw what is behind. Now I'm going to start by just going through and drawing all of my lines, but let me show you what you will do when you have finished all of that. Now, remember that we start along the bottom. If you have your vanishing point on the bottom edge, you want to draw from the bottom of your letters, but you also need to check if you are going to have any areas coming down from the top of your letters, like this edge of my W and this corner of my W over here. So once we've gone through and drawn in not only the lines leading back from the bottom, but also any lines that lead back from the top, then we get to decide how thick we want our letters, our three-dimensional letters, to be. Now remember that for our first perspective practice, we doubled the line that's in front and we drew another line behind it to match. Now I am just going to use a measurement on my ruler so I can keep it consistent. I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch as my thickness. Now that means I'm going to put this 1/4 inch line directly along the line that's in front, and that is how I know how thick to make each of these sections coming out from my lines. So now I could go through, and after I have mirrored the edge that's in the front of those letters, I can come through and erase this bottom section and erase the entire section of lines that are leading back to it. So this is our first chance to go through and practice some of your perspective methods. And this is not something that you are going to be stuck with if you decide you'd rather have your vanishing point in a different location for your final draft. Then that is absolutely up to you. Now, once you have finished your first perspective practice for this rough draft section, you're going to hop down to the next section where it says, draw 2 sketches of your ideas for your final layout. You're going to color in your favorite one. So you don't have to color both of these, but you do need to color one of them with your color scheme. Now you must choose colors that work together for a color scheme. And remember that we are burnishing, filling in super dark and heavy, none of this like light coloring business, because that gives us these grains and makes it look not as complete. Now you are going to make sure you incorporate these project requirements of a color scheme. Lots of solid black coloring. When you decide to come in with colored pencil, you must incorporate solid black somewhere in your design, and hopefully a lot of it. You must have accurate perspective. You have to add in another detail, so it cannot just be your word, and you have to give it a background. So you are adding in the background, the additional detail, the word, and you're deciding on your color scheme and where you're going to add black. Now, when you're writing this here, you do not need to do like super perfect font here. We could just come in and say Walters as a placeholder, and then you could practice your other parts. So this is not necessarily about perfecting your font and your perspective. It's more about deciding what you want to have for your final draft idea. Now, as you are thinking through, I highly recommend going through the inspiration photos. And on this first page, you can see that it is background inspiration ideas. So maybe I would come in and have this be in a section of a wall that's like breaking through. So maybe I would have some edges here. And then, I don't know, maybe because I'm a Harry Potter fan, maybe I would add in a lightning bolt. And so I could have that just kind of like off to the side as my extra additional detail. So here is my lightning bolt, and maybe, oh, I'm gonna make this like the platform 9 3/4. So here would be like my little sign with the 9 3/4. And then this is going to be, I'm excited. Okay, I'm gonna have perspective leading all of these lines back so that it looks like I'm breaking through the wall to get to the platform 9 3/4. Oh, I like that. Now I am just gonna go through and add in the perspective by mirroring those front edges, and then maybe I would come through and have this be a brick wall, and I could add in my bricks, and I could choose a color scheme that maybe incorporates something with the brick color so that I could tie that in. Or I could make it just like a funky, fun color idea. It does not have to be realistic colors for everything that you choose. Now, in this inspiration packet, you will not only see patterns and layouts for your background, but you also have some examples that were really well done with details that you might consider incorporating in yours. So we've got some background ideas and some inspiration of people that have done this really well. And then we also have some ideas for your add-in inspiration. So you can look through and see how you could incorporate characters, how you could have an action like a person's hand pulling back a curtain, how you can just incorporate something off to the side that's in the style and goes with the word, but is just a little extra pop, not just the word alone. Now, in the back here, I do have some doodle references to help you with add-in inspiration ideas, just to give you something specific to draw from. Now, you'll draw 2 of these in pencil, and like it says, you're only choosing your favorite one to color with your color scheme. And this is going to be your last practice before we continue into your final draft. And this is where you are going to draw your final draft, and you'll start in regular pencil. You're going to draw everything in, and then you're going to start with your darkest colored pencils and make sure it's all included in a color scheme, and you're going to burnish and color the entire design so that you have a cool background, so that you have an interesting add-in idea, and you need to have your font in an interesting design with perspective, 1-point perspective leading somewhere onto your paper. Now, that is what we're looking for this final project, and this rough draft page is meant to help you nail down your ideas before you're expected to create them for your final draft. I hope that this video was a helpful explanation, and if you have any questions, you just come up and ask. Thank you so much for watching.